What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Hawks Film Room podcast, hosted by yours truly, David, aka D-Lee43. Make sure you like, subscribe, let someone know about the podcast. Definitely appreciate you guys tapping in. We got an interesting combo today because the Hawks, after giving up an ungodly amount of points to the Detroit Pistons the night before, in fact, they gave a 99th percentile offensive performance to the Detroit Pistons had quite literally a top 1% shot making performance. They then held the Miami Heat under 90 points with an effective field goal percentage just about 36%, third worst this season, in a 0 percentile offensive performance. It's the first time the Hawks have held an opponent under 90 points since 2021. And I'm very happy to be talking about a Hawks victory with my guy, Saucy Takes, Heat fan, Heat legend. How you doing, bro?
What's up? What's up, man? How's it going? How's it going? A great game for the Heat too, right? I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, so I think we'll definitely get into some of the meat and bones, but from a Hawks perspective, I think at least for me, like the game ball would have to go to Onyeka Okongwu. I thought he had a really good night. Now there have always been some comparison of John between him and Bam.
Yeah.
Some of it is just archetypes, some of it's body composition. They look kind of similar too in terms of the way they play. And I thought there were even some Hawks fans saying like, "Oh, can't believe I used to compare him to Bam," you know. And I think Bam has been the measuring stick for Onyeka his whole career. And I'm not saying he surpassed him by any means, but tonight he was better. And I think that's encouraging for Hawks fans as Onyeka is trying to figure out his stride as a starter. 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 70% from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. And he had some really nice passes and playmaking flashes. So over the last 5 games, he's creating 9 points per game from his passes. So he's leaning a little bit more to that dribble handoff stuff. But what did you see from Onyeka tonight or last night?
I mean, he was just really impressive. A lot more selective with his very intentional, and selective on where he stands on the floor now.
Right. Yep.
A lot of it also, maybe again, I don't watch every Hawk game. I watch you guys when you guys play us, and then maybe 1 or 2 games throughout the year. But he just looks a lot more comfortable in this offensive scheme. I feel like clarity in his role is a big thing, and him knowing that he's basically. I mean, I know he started with Muhammad Gay, but it's different when he's playing alongside Clint, and it's different when he knows that he has to be relied upon, so he has to step up to the plate, especially with Jalen being out for you guys. It's just furthering his improvement and his development. I've been a big Onyeka fan for literally since he came out of the draft. So watching him piece it together after getting a contract, I believe, didn't he sign a contract this year with you guys? That's exactly what you want to see from a team building standpoint. You want to lock somebody in on good value and then them outperform their contract. And just the way he played yesterday on offense and on defense too, on both sides of the floor, just a lot more comfortable. And, I think you guys, truthfully should be thrilled with the way that at least yesterday he played. Again, I can't speak for prior games, but yesterday showed up, did his thing. The 3-pointer looks night and day in terms of fluidity, in terms of shot prep, in terms of all of these things, where he gets them from, where he doesn't force them. Just a lot more intentional, like I said, with his spots on offense, where he wants to go. The playmaking was also a nice touch because primarily, aside from that, he was just a pick and roll big the last couple times we've played you guys. So adding that different layer and dimension to the offense should help get some of these guys going. Hopefully Trae eventually, but the Dyson Daniels, the Reese Shays, guys who like to come off of these DHOs or cut back door and move off ball and stuff like that. So, I mean, I thought he was sensational for you guys yesterday.
Yeah, and your points about the movement too, that's where the Hawks want to go, and you can't run that offense without having someone who can function as a handoff hub. We see what Bam has done for Tyler Hero, what he's done for Duncan Robinson, and that's the vision for Onyeka going forward with a little bit more, hopefully shooting, such that Bam, for example, earlier this season he did light us up from 3, but I feel like the 3 ball has kind of been inconsistent with him too. So
shooting better than Terry Rozier.
Yes, I saw maybe it was on your time, maybe you had retweeted it, but something about they want let's get Terry Rozier going, and I was like, he didn't even play last night, did he?
No, he didn't. And I'm okay with that. So that's fine with me.
And I know you said before we started too, like it might be tough to get the two Heat players to highlight. But if I had to give you one, if you had to give me one, who would you give some flowers to?
Um, I'm gonna start off with like if I had to give one, I'm gonna start off with Wiggins, just
Yep.
because he really had it going in the first half. Obviously cooled off towards the end of the game, but like he's ever since he's came here, he's had ungodly expectation by Heat fans. He's wearing 22. Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we'll get into that. But regardless, he has hefty expectations. He was the marquee player we got back in the deal, and he had been offensively not really in a rhythm. But I think yesterday got himself going again. This is a guy who's coming from one of the most advanced offenses, most complex offenses off of motion, off of read and react, with
Right.
the best shooter in the world in terms of gravity. And he's having to adjust to now playing with, let's face it, a subpar team, subpar talent, and he's being asked to self-create things that he hasn't really done at this, to this like stature, like this often, this frequent, since he used to be in Minnesota. Like it's been over 5 years since Wiggins has had to dive this deep into his bag. So he's had some rough games. But yesterday in particular, I like the way he attacked the rim. I like the way he got to the foul line, 7 free throws, chef's kiss. That's what you want to see. And his threes started falling. Everything came in rhythm. He forced some shots too. But again, those are the growing pains. It's crazy. He's 30 and we're talking about growing pains, but that's where the Miami Heat are, ladies and gentlemen. But like, if I had to highlight somebody, it would definitely be him. His defense has been impactful so far, literally just about every game except for 1/3 quarter against Tatum. But Wiggins would be my guy.
Yeah, he had a block against Onyeka that stands out to me. He's always been a solid mismatch attacker as well. And I think that point about trying to adjust to a different type of role makes a lot of sense because in a lot of ways he's now the secondary shot creator behind Tyler Hero, I would assume, right? Is like that's kind of like the hierarchy of the team.
Yeah. The to be very honest, the games that he's been on the floor, he's been Tyler's 1B most of the time. The game Tyler wasn't here, he was the sole one. We lost that game, granted, but he was the sole one. Like, so it's definitely a change in hierarchy in terms of where the shots are coming from, and it's something he has to get just used to, and the team needs to get used to him too. It's not just him getting used to the team. Like he does different things and hangs out in different spots than Jimmy used to, and they're completely different players. So it's just, it's a learning curve at the moment.
For sure. I think, and then from my perspective, if I had to point out someone for the Heat, I thought Kyle Anderson was quietly like pretty passable. He almost got away with, like, he took the ball from Trae and then grabbed him and then drew the foul. And I was about to lose my mind. They called that on Trae. But I think that's what Kyle Anderson does. Like he's gonna be very heady. He's gonna move the ball well. Only had 2 assists, but I thought the ball popped. He also had 10 free throws.
Great game from him.
Yeah. Now, I do think the whistles were a little egregious at some points, but this is a physical team. It's an athletic team. It's a big team, right? So it's like if the offense isn't falling, they're going to get to the free throw line. And so I think that was an element of it for sure. You only took 4 shots, but, I mean, you get to the free throw line 10 times, you go 9 for 10. That's really good production from someone who wasn't playing much in Golden State, if at all. So I thought that he really stood out to me. What about from your perspective? Like, was there anyone else besides Onyeka who stood out to you?
For me, in terms of you guys, it's got to be Dyson.
Yeah.
Like we can talk about what Trae does offensively for you. It's truly special. But my fucking goodness, like watching Dyson Daniels is it's defensive pornography every time he's on the court. Like I didn't mean to say it like that, but shit, I'm being honest. Like
that's the truth.
He is a master of his craft in terms of his ability to go over screens, fight through screens, knowing where the pass is going to come from, knowing where, like, what angle you're trying to get the ball to. There was a play, I believe it was in the second half. I can't remember if it was in the third or in the fourth quarter, but one of our best passers is Duncan Robinson, and the Duncan to Kyle Anderson slip. Duncan with anybody, if they slip, Duncan hits him. Like it's crisp. He came off of the strong side corner all the way. Like, it wasn't his rotation. It was not his rotation. And he shot because the previous play, we had gotten that to Kyle Anderson. He got 2 free throws, like 2 plays before. They did the same play. He came all the way off of his man and read that. Granted, it was a good pass. 2 guys were on Duncan. We're going to play 4-on-3. He was just that much more ahead of the play, and he's been spectacular for you guys. I am so happy that from the obviously, like the record, it's a growing, but like I think you guys have found, for the most part, somebody who matches with Trae Young.
Yep.
Like, and that's huge in terms of, what you guys want to do long term or whatever. But in terms of like an immediate fix, like he's meshed a lot better than DeJounte did for you guys.
Oh yeah, like by 1,000 magnets. It's been
exactly.
Like this kid, man. Like it has been so long since we've had a defender of his caliber. Honestly, like it's a deep cut. Probably I've said this before. I think Thabo Sefolosha is the last time we had a guy who was this committed defensively on the perimeter, and that is, we're talking like nearly a decade. And so, I mean, I'm and what was so fascinating, I should have recorded this at the presser. Someone asked him, like, did you feel like you were in the flow state defensively? Because he finished with 7 steals. And he said that defense is a rhythm thing, just like offense. And so throughout the course of the game, he comes in aware of players' tendencies, but like within the flow of the game, he's like, okay, well, maybe this guy likes to drive this way. And you saw him get a bunch of back tap steals. You saw him pick up on different, like you mentioned, where he blitzed, was able to take that pass away coming off the corner. So we'll definitely take a look at some of those, because I think he's entering those savant conversations, I think, honestly, where as a defender, where in an age where players are even better than, like, if you look at some of the tape from like the 80s and the 70s, ball control was like no one could really handle the ball well, right? I mean, that's hyperbole, but relatively speaking, the average NBA player has a much tighter hand. So
yeah, this is the most skilled the league has ever been. So
so if you have to think about like the difficulty of getting steals, what he's doing is a reason it hasn't been done since the 2000s. It's the reason it hasn't been done in more than 20 years, because guys have simply gotten better to take care of the ball. So he's an anomaly. No Jason Tatum.
It's a literal shame that the defensive player of the year doesn't have 2 categories, because this season in particular, I'm a Bam fan. I think he probably should have won 2 of them. Not this year. This is not for him. This has not been his best defense. I don't think last year was a good year for him too, comparable to his prior seasons. But Dyson has been fucking sensational for you guys. I hope he gets some props in terms of like the voting and at least comes in second. I hope he wins it, to be very honest, because Wemby missing some time now too. Like it's unfortunate, which helps his case. I think it's either him or Jaren's at this point. But I'm rooting for him. Somebody who was miscasted. Thrown to the side basically in New Orleans, had some minutes last year, but you guys took a swing on a very important play. Like, you guys took a smart swing on a player, got 2 picks back, helped set like a good trade at a good time to get some good value. Throw in the 2 trades and a young piece like that, and things are flowing good for you guys. So that was great.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that trade. And I think, honestly, like, it's not often you get to make up for a mistake like that. Like, that was a huge mistake trading for DeJounte. But what's fascinating about Dyson is, even when he's not on the floor, I feel like this Hawks team has been a bottom 5 defense for years. This year, we're about league average. A lot of that is Dyson's impact, but also his leadership as a defender. And so one thing the Hawks have been much better at is rotating. And let me double check the numbers before I say this, but I'm pretty confident that they're the best team in the league at defending against the pick and roll man. So what that essentially means is, all like you pointed out, Duncan Robinson is really good on these short low passes, right? So when you have to put 2 on the ball against Duncan if he has any sort of space on the guy that's trailing him, because he is that level shooter. So what Duncan will do is then drop it right in between those guys and then split them, and then now you've got someone going on the short low. But against the Hawks, at least earlier in this, so earlier in the season, we were the best defense in the league against the roll man. This season, we're top 10. The last 2 seasons, we were the worst team in the league, or one of the worst teams in the league at defending the roll man. And it's possessions like these that we can really see that difference, right? So, and this, mind you, this is Trae Young rotating. This isn't one of our bigger wings. This isn't Muhammad Gay. This isn't Dyson Daniels. This is Trae Young diagnosing that he needs to come tag this roller. And so as Trae, again, he can't offer a ton of resistance, but simply being there has Kyle read the situation and then try to pitch it back out. And it's a late contest from Karis LeVert. I don't know what Alec Burks is shooting this year. He went 1 for 8 last night, but has it been bad?
No, he's been one of the. We were joking on the timeline that everybody wanted earlier in the year more Burks, less Terry. We got no Terry and Burks, and people said shit. He got Terry's bad. He got the bad juju from Terry Rose. It was the worst game he's played all season. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah,
he's been really good, and this was just
wow. Yeah, so he's a 41% 3-point shooter. For the record. So, but he can be straightened. And the Hawks' bet here is that, especially with this infrastructure on the floor, they're like, okay, let's try and force these closeouts, right? So a long closeout comes from Karis LeVert, and it ends up being a miss for Alec Burks, again, who's been a great shooter this season, and he didn't have a great night. I don't think anyone on the Heat really shot it pretty that well. But they've been very aggressive trying to show help on this roller. And why I think one reason why I think it's important is because they already have, like, they're sort of playing the variance game, right? So they're saying, okay, we would prefer, instead of having basically guaranteed 2 points because we don't have a lot of size on the floor, we want to try and force these kickouts and then try to close out as well as possible. And I think especially with Trae as the low man, by being aggressive here so it doesn't go to the dunker spot, now it goes out to the corner. That's just a lower percentage shot than it is if it goes to Kyle Anderson. So last night, the variance was in their favor, and I do think some of that was about funneling shots in the right way and getting it away from the rim, right? But it's not always going to be that result. And I thought this was a good pass from Tyler Hero. Sort of looks off, and then he's able to get that through. Good, pretty good closeout from Onyeka Okongwu. Like, these are not bad looks by any means, and I don't think the Hawks defense was good enough in terms of, like, so great that you guys should have had one of the worst offensive performances of any team this season. So
I agree.
As you watch the game and as you look through these clips, what is your overall feeling? Like, how much of this do you think was just unlucky shot making versus the Hawks being a little bit better at shrinking the floor against a team like Mann?
I mean, so shot variance has been the Heat's motto this season since practically it started, and even more so since Jimmy left. We don't have anybody who can truly put pressure on the rim at all. Like even Tyler, that's not his forte, especially with no Jimmy. Bam, that's not his forte. Like, I truly think the best player we have on the team in terms of just providing rim pressure might be Kyle Anderson. If that's not a him and Wiggins probably, if I'm being honest. But we shot 5 for 35 yesterday on open to wide open looks. We were just bad.
That's ridiculous.
That's horrible.
Wow.
Outside of Andrew Wiggins, we were 3 for 31 from 3. Less than 10%. Like, the defense of scheme was good. I think it's never we just shot bad and you guys didn't play defense and we got bailed out. It's never one thing. Like, it's never just that cut and dry. Like, there's obviously a lot of things. It's ironic because we're talking about this because Spoelstra, after the game, he was asked and he was like, I think this was one of the best basketball games that we have played in terms of shot quality, which I thought was interesting because I didn't think they were that good either. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's an interesting perspective from the coach himself after we've been horrible over the last 7 games, offensively and defensively at this point, to be honest. But it's a little bit of both. I think you guys did funnel shots, and guys were just happened to be off today too. So it was a good blend of both that worked in your favor. But if you take away the rim, then you're going to win basketball games. Like, that's the highest percentage shot in basketball is a uncontested layup over any kind of wide open 3. I don't care who's shooting it.
Yeah. So the trade-off, that's what the Hawks have been trying to do, especially with Jalen Johnson now, is we're struggling to defend the rim without size. Let's just completely shrink the floor as much as possible and then try and force these kickouts to other guys. And that's been a formula that's worked some nights. It hasn't worked every night. It worked last night. And I think that's what Quinn Snyder said, because someone asked him after the Pistons game, and he was talking a lot about, like, process versus results. Like, there are some things you just can't control. I don't know if you saw any clips from Cage's performance. That was legitimately, like, one of the best halves I've ever seen played in State Farm Arena. He had 29 and 10. He was 6 of 8 from 3, deep pull-up threes, at least 26, 27 feet. And given him with his trajectory this season, you can't necessarily live with that, but it is like there's only so much you can do when he's on that type of heat, right? And I think that was what Quinn was saying is like it's hard to tell your guys that when they're going through that type of loss where they feel like they were good from a process perspective in the second half, but some of the shot making just from him and Malik Beasley was just really tough. But I think they were able to sort of get away from like being stuck into that overall like, oh, we got beat really bad and like, okay, we're not gonna play that way anymore, whatever it may be. Like I thought that they were much better tonight in terms of connectedness, in terms of rotations. And then Hero as well. Like I thought he had a pretty decent night the first time they played in Atlanta. He was able to get to his spots. Last night wasn't as effective. Was 4 of 19, 0 of 9 from 3. I was really, I remain impressed. Like this is just one game. I've remained impressed with like what he's done this season. Some of the shot making, the scoring has been really off the charts. Not something I really ever believed in him being capable of, if I'm being quite honest. But I think that
I didn't either. So
yeah, I think that he might honestly he might be experiencing something that Trae does quite frequently, which is like you're now the focal point of the offense, which means Jimmy used to take the best defender. Full stop. And with Jimmy in and out the lineup, Hero was seeing those guys too. But I think that the next step for him is like, or I'm not going to assume the next step is. What do you think his next step is to be able to be, or do we even see like he can fulfill in that role? Do you think he can get to that level of a creator where he can be that guy?
It's tough because he lacks the ability to get to the rim. He's somebody who needs a screen, and he's been, like I think people need to start differentiating just in general certain things from players. Like I wasn't a big Tyler Hero fan previous seasons. It wasn't because I didn't like him as a player. I just didn't like his play style as a player. Like he was very mid-range heavy. I thought he was a good enough 3-point shooter to pull out the long twos and stick to the threes. And he's done that this season. Like I'm not going to hate on him now. Like that's exactly what he's doing. His next level, and why I just don't know how high of a level he can eventually reach, is got to be getting to the rim and getting to the line. And those are two things that are hard, very, very difficult to come by. I think one of his previous games, he had like 16 free throws. He's starting to get into the low pickup, bring his hands up, get to the line stuff. That's what you need. That's the next step for Tyler. But then again, he still has some of these nights. Like, the elites of the elites don't have 4 for 19 nights with only 11 points because they got to the line 3 times. If they shoot 4 for 19, they had 10 free throws to back it up too. Like, and it's that for me that is the discrepancy. Now, granted, he had the best guard defender in basketball on him. So like some of this is that too. I'm not saying it's not, but you would still like a little bit more crispness from him. I would like, it's not just on him. I would like to see some sets run for him. Like we have we have nobody else to initiate offense, especially with Nico being out for the year. It's just tough for us. So he's had full stop, all responsibility to do everything offensively since the All-Star break. And he responded pretty well. I mean, he had 2 40-point games out of his last 3 prior to yesterday. Like he was answering the call. It was the best basketball I had ever seen from Tyler Hero in a 3-game stretch. And then yesterday he came plummeting down to earth. So,
yeah. And to your point too, he's never been above 20% in terms of rim frequency. The last time he was at 20% was in 2021. This season he's at 17%, which is an uptick from the past seasons. He was at 11 and 13%. He's cut out some of the mid-range stuff in terms of the long mid-range. He used to be closer to like 20 to 15%. Now this season he's at 7. Yep. He's gotten his 3-point frequency above 50% for the first time in his career. So that cutting that out is huge. The short mid-range stuff is still there though. He's at 22%, but again, that's one of the lowest rates of his career, and he should at 55%.
Yeah, so the short mid-range stuff, they also identified that as 4 to 14 feet.
Yeah, a lot of that's
zero cleaning the glass. He's really good at floaters like that. I don't want to misquote it, but I know like 2 years ago he was the second best player in the league in floaters behind just Jokic, obviously. And it was like Jokic was like 69 or 68%, and he was 57. That was the gap between 1 and 2, which is, by the way, that's insane. But for majority of the season, at least.
Yeah, I think the floater is a weapon that, like, I mean, Hawks fans know this. it's a necessary weapon for guards. Like there's only so much you can do at a certain size. And
Absolutely.
For someone like a Tyler Hero, he has to be able to get to those things. I want to show an example of some of the rotations the Hawks were able to pull off. I thought that there were some moments where they were really crisp. There were some moments where it could have been better. So while I'm pulling those up, or I'm curious too, like just about Bam, and then we'll come back to this. But like, what do you think? I know that Hero in particular is a little screen heavy. Like, what is your pulse on like Bam's season, his offensive stuff? Because like I think I tweeted out like if I was a Heat fan, I'd be really frustrated with him. And that was immediately after I watched him have a wide open shot at the rim, and he took a floater. And I was like, yo, actually, let me pull up the clip. Because not only was he wide open, the low man was Trae. Here it is right here. So here's the clip. And, oh, wait. Yeah, sorry. It's right here. So, again, Hawks put 2 on the ball. And he smokes his float. And this is something I've seen him do this in other scenarios too. But I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts around Bam offensively, his season in general?
Bam is not a player you want to run your offense through and win you significant basketball games, at least in terms of him putting the ball in the basket. It's frustrating because at the beginning of the season, he was horrible offensively. It was the worst I had ever seen Bam. As of late, he's gotten a lot more comfortable. Also, he's somebody who heavily relies on pull-up twos as opposed to getting to the rim, and he is not particularly a good shooter in that range. He had the second highest attempts between 4 to 14 feet out of any player in basketball. Only Luka Doncic had more. The difference was he was the third worst shooting him. So, like, it was ugly for majority of the season. Those numbers have since changed, but I'm talking about 40 games of this, half a season of this, really, really impacts his efficiency metrics offensively. Right. It's an issue because Bam, some of it he's never been truly allowed to see what his offensive capabilities could be. And some of it has just been, he's just not good enough offensively. And that's okay. Like, like it's frustrating, but I've seen him since 2017 now. Like this has been 8 years of Bam Adebayo and 5 years of really him, or since 2019. So this is about to be year 6 of him really taking this leap and having this responsibility. But Bam's at best when he has a guard who can get him open looks. He can self-create a little bit, but it's never consistent enough where you want that to be a big part of his game. And I think Spo knows that because he's never been first in the team in shot attempts. I don't think he's ever been second in the team in shot attempts, not even this season, since Wiggins has been here, because that's just not what, like, I think his effective field goal percentage is like in the 50s. His points per shot attempt is like bottom 15th percentile for, like, he's just not it in terms of efficiency. What he does provide is, I think he's one of the best screeners in all of basketball. His DHO stuff is incredible. From like high post reads, he's really comfortable with that. Obviously an otherworldly defender, but the offensive limitations are very, 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 very clear. And as much as he's wanted to play a 4, he does not have a 4's game offensively.
So I think what's really interesting about what you just said is that you feel like a lot of what his offensive ineptitude comes to the fact that he was never allowed to explore, right? You go back to his college at Kentucky too. Like he was just a role. Right. So it's like a lot of these bigs, and we talked about this on the previous podcast where I have another Hawks fan on, Tyler Jones. He was saying, think about like a Jared Allen, a Bam, guys. A lot of guys come in completely without any sort of like short roll passing skills or really like flashy dribble handoff stuff. And it takes time. It takes a ton of time. And for Bam, it took him time. For Onyeka Okongwu, it took him time. And so I think what's really exciting about Onyeka is in last night's game, I felt like he flashed a ton of versatility on both ends. This was my favorite play for him. So he's going to do a Euro step. Weir's trying to guard 2 here. 2 Euros. And then he's going to wrap this pass around. he sees Bam's coming, so he doesn't throw it to Mohamed Gay's chest. He throws the bounce pass, which leads him to open up. And then that allows Gay to seal off of Bam and spin and get that little floater. So I thought your center doing this is pretty wild, quite honestly. And I think for him, for Onyeka too, like he was very similar to Bam. Like at USC, actually, he had I think he had a little bit more offensive versatility than Bam. But when he came to the league, like Nate McMillan and Lloyd Pierce, they didn't really give him a ton of freedom. And so I think this is really his first season where he's able to explore and be creative, and the results is stuff like this, which I think is really special at that spot. And then some of the defensive stuff too. I think one of his limitations is sorry, go ahead.
No, and this is to your point. Like, yesterday after the Heat Beat podcast, I typically do after every post game. By the way, shameless plug. Check us out. We're live on Twitch after every game. Even if we lose, we're gonna play you guys on Wednesday. This is gonna be out before then. If y'all lose, come in there and talk some shit. It's funny. We have a good time. It's just vibes. So
for sure,
and you'll have some people over there. But just in terms of like Bam's progression, some of it is, we're talking about this in terms of his passing being, in my opinion, and this is from a Heat fan, I think it's a little bit overrated. Because I do think he's a good passer when he's standing still, but his processing and his motion reads, like off of these short rolls. Yesterday, he had like 3 short roll passes that were lobs that he just could not throw for the love of him. And it's again, he's never played with a big. He's never been asked to do this short roll lob stuff, but it's you would have liked for this to not be an issue. And for example, even on this play, great play from Onyeka, the pass was horrible.
Yeah, this should have been a dunk. Like, we're looking at a freeze frame here, but like right here, there's no way this shouldn't be a dunk. You see, Onyeka didn't even have to really jump.
The pass is terrible. There was like 2 of those just in the first quarter, and one of them from Kalel. So, but yeah, it's frustrating. So watching Okongwu put the ball on the floor and make some of these reads, I think is truly impressive. It's nice to see players grow and have the freedom to, because Quinn Snyder has given him some of that.
Yep. The live dribble passing has been special. And what I really like about this possession too, you're going to see Trae, he's going to tell Onyeka, just bring the ball up. And I don't remember the result of this possession, but having your big being able to bring the ball up the floor just gives, especially for someone like Trae who has to go against physical defenders like Davion Mitchell, is not a fun guy to play against. And then he also saw Wiggins. Davion Mitchell is a Heat player. You know what I mean? Like he is Heat culture. So just giving that little bit of leverage off a Trae. Now you can flow into that handoff. Now you can play out of that instead of having the Trae bring it up full court against Davion or against Andrew Wiggins. So I think for a team against a team like the Heat, that's a huge asset. And then I think the shooting, like sometimes I'll watch him shoot, and I agree that it looks more fluid. But it also is like it's a lot of rips. Like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Nas Weed a little bit. It's not nearly as pretty, but like Nas will like barely jump. It's just a flick of the wrist. Nick is kind of more like he lifts it up and then he kind of like jerks into it. But it's been a lot better. Like I think the aggressiveness has been good. Like the results have been different from night to night. The defensive stuff, like that's Bam's shot. I thought this is a good rep from him against Onyeka. Onyeka's really strong, so he takes that first bump. He's able to meet him on, and then he has his hand up. Bam's able to get a little bit higher than him, but I thought that was nice. And then you mentioned the screening from Bam. And I think another thing that's like, I think a lot of fans don't realize like how much chemistry goes into screening, how much different angles go into it, knowing when to release, knowing when to not release, when to make contact, when to ghost it. And the Hawks have been really heavy in the ghost screens. So I don't think he made contact here, but like the Hawks would just bail out of screens really fast. Did you see a similar thing with like Bam and Hero? Or like, who do you think Bam like has the best screening chemistry with?
Duncan Robinson. It's not even close. Duncan Robinson is the best pick and roll passer we have on the team, and it's realistically, whenever you see a Heat highlight and it's off of some kind of a pick and roll and it's a big getting a dunk, it's off of a Duncan Robinson pass.
Good.
Like it's the ghost screening you're talking about. Like when certain players who have that kind of gravity have the ball and they come off of what's projected to be a screen, teams are going to hedge or try to send two. They will never play drop, like not at least not versus Trae, obviously not versus Duncan. Obviously, the Currys of the world, the Dames of that's typically not what you're going to see. So being able to have that timing of when to ghost, how to ghost, and the angle to take off of your slip or off of your cut, it needs to be there. And so does a short roll passing, because if the defense comes and helps, as opposed to helping at the rim, help at the dotted line, then you have to do what Draymond does. What Draymond has made his whole career off of, being able to be a short roll facilitator and stuff. So
100%. It's clicked off. So I thought this was a lot of respect shown for Dyson here on the post up. I know Tyler Hero's on him, but you'll see Khalil Ware is heavily helping. And part of this, I don't remember who was in the corner here, but
I think it was Mohammed.
It was Mohammed, yeah. So like the Heat are comfortable, right? Shrinking off of that. But Bam looks up the floor just for a second, and Onyeka just leaves him. And then he floats it right over Khalil Ware's. Yes, I thought that was, they're playing out of structure, just read and react. I thought that was really nice. And his touch around the rim really is special. I don't remember, at some point, like he was around like 69, 72 shooting for his career. It's kind of dipped a bit as his shot had been a little bit tougher and he had a little bit of a slump, but he has really great touch around the rim. You guys are making it interesting down the stretch. Like free throws kept them in it. Alec Burks gathers here, and then Onyeka goes up the high point, and I think this is where you can see, like, yes, he is undersized, but he could still be an asset around the rim. Like, obviously, it would be nice for him to be a true 7 feet, but I like seeing him contest this shot. And then
I also just want you to see, from my standpoint, look at our spacing. That shit is atrocious.
Yeah.
We have Wiggins cutting, a guy helping off him. Kyle Anderson isn't even fully spaced to the three-point line because we love hammer screens in the corner for some reason, especially off a bad space. We have three guys on one side of the floor where the drive is coming from. It's Miami Heat basketball, ladies and gentlemen.
And yeah, so like if you are going to run empty pick and roll, typically you don't want to drive into the help, which is exactly what Alec Burks is doing. And some of that, again, it's because of the alignment on the strong side of the floor. And that allows the Hawks to crowd him. That's three guys. Giannis might convert this, but that's Alec Burks. You know what I mean? So it's like, very tough shot for him. And then what I like from Onyeka here, he's going to throw this pass like and lead Trae up the floor. Now, the Hawks somehow did not convert on this possession because Dyson wasn't ready for the pass. But I like that Onyeka was looking ahead and thinking about that. So now you see the pick and roll here where somewhat better spacing, right? The Hawks have Karis LeVert. I don't know why. He must have dove in. He was in the corner, and you've got Niang space at the top. So Hame can't really reliably tag there, so he's a little bit late. And then it's an easy read with Trae to get to that sort of short roll based on Khalil Ware's positioning. And then I like that Onyeka's able to get to the other side of the rim too, because Ware has ridiculous wingspan, but he's not trying to go. He's not going directly from that pass, right? Like he's jumping from one side of the key to the other. And I thought that was a nice little touch from him because, I like Khalil a lot. Before we got the number 1 pick, like he was the guy that I was, oh man, if he's available, I would like to have him. So I paid a lot of attention to him pre-draft, and I was really excited to see him start to break out for you guys. I know he's quieted down a little bit, but I still think there's something really special in him. So I just want to touch on that.
Yeah, really toolsy guy. I'll be completely honest. I did not like Khalil Ware pre-draft.
Really?
In terms of for a heat fit, I thought he had some motor concerns, some conditioning.
There's no better place to go though if you have conditioning.
And I literally said that on I said that on draft night. I said, as much as I don't like that wouldn't have been my pick in terms of like if I was the Heat GM or whatever. You can't doubt like this is probably their biggest challenge to date in terms of really getting a ball of clay with some tools and how can you convert him and create him. I will never doubt a Heat pick because if there's one thing that they know that this franchise knows how to do is draft players and develop them, especially since 2015, 2016, where Spo got full reign of the, who he wants on his coaching staff, all that stuff. Because prior to then, when it was a Big Three era, Pat Riley made all of those decisions. He handpicked all his assistant coaches for Spo. But when LeBron left, so did Pat Riley's decision-making when it came to the assistant coaches. And we really started seeing the progressions of obviously the Justice Winslows, the Josh Richardsons, the Tyler Johnsons, even the James Johnson for the year he was here, Bam, Tyler.
Tyler Johnson. I forgot about Tyler Johnson.
We got all those guys paid. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Caleb Martin. Yeah, like the player Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn. People was talking about him like he was supposed to be good for a year or two. You know, like we know how to do that. Like that's what the team is good at. And so again, going back to Kalel, like I would never doubt them betting on themselves to make a player better. And he does have the tools. Obviously, he's a rookie. He yesterday, I'm pretty sure it wasn't shown on your broad. Like, why would it be? But Spoelstra was digging into him after a timeout because I thought his pick and roll defense yesterday was nowhere to be found for most of the game. And Spo got into him for being too handsy, out of position. And he didn't play the whole fourth quarter, which I think is ridiculous, but whatever. As much as I didn't like the pick, I can still say he needs to be playing 30 minutes a game minimum for us at the moment.
And then we'll have to talk about some of the rookie leashes because that's somewhat similar to what the Hawks have experienced with reach. But I saw Spo get frustrated a couple of times from my vantage point in the arena. What I love about having Dice is you can just kind of trust him like one-on-one. The Hawks used to have to. They are doing a lot more rotating this year, but that's because they're trying to cover up things. But like when he's on the other team's best scorer, for the most part, he's going to have a huge impact. And so what this allows them to do is like Onyeka splitting the difference here. So there's another Heat player up here. I think it was Davion Mitchell. And then he's able to just sort of get back out to the corner and get a contest on that Alec Burks 3. So I love seeing that from him. Here, Kalel leaves him alone. This is kind of like, I don't know what the principles are for the Heat, but like I felt like Kalel was very aggressive with his help. Like, why? What do you think he's thinking here? Where it's like,
that's the issue.
Bam has that. Like, there's no reason. And this is something I've begged the Hawks because like in the beginning of the season they were overly helping for Dyson. I'm like, he's good, and they figured that out. I'm sure Kalel will too. But like, he completely leads on Onyeka. It's like Mohamed Gay is not scoring on Bam one-on-one that deep in the paint, right?
And if he does, you should live with it. Like, it's a game of numbers. Like, if he makes the shot, with 18 seconds in the shot clock, there is no reason for you to help this early. Yeah. If there was 2 seconds and like basically he has to get this off, or whoever you're helping off of has to, force a quick rush 3, then I get it. But he literally has all day to get ready, and that's some of the issue with Kalel. Hasn't been on offense; it's been on defense. His rotations, his feet, and pick and roll, where to be, his hands. He's very handsy. He loves to lower his hands and then go up. So he goes into guys' chest. I'm pretty sure. I think Trae had like 2-3 fouls just off of that. Like those kinds of things. It's a rookie learning curve. So I hope he does get better. But at the beginning of the season, when we really heard Kalel popping off and him going and getting into his own thing, he was the big off of the bench, and Spo ran exclusive zone every time he was in the game, thus making his job so much easier. And I tried to because I try to warn them. Like I see the kid play 20 games in college. Like I'm not. He wasn't a good defender, but if you play him in zone, you're essentially hiding his weakness, which is his feet, and you're accentuating his height. But the thing is, in the playoffs, teams are going to figure that out too. So he needs to get these reps on ball, like as a in playing and drop or at the level, or like he needs to get all these. He needs to get the rust out of the way early and not when it actually matters. So I'm cool with it, but it's just, like you said, man, it's the leash thing is also a real thing.
Yeah, the bigs take time and rookies take time in general. So it's like they got to get those reps, and I think that's what we've seen with Onyeka, and that's what we've seen with Regis say too, who's just getting better and better. I think this is one of those live passing examples. So it's just a big asset to be able to say, like, I can trust my big man running down the floor to make the right decision. If this is Clint Capella, man, I don't even know he might kick it into the stand. I'm not sure. But this is a lead bounce pass to throw Mohamed Gay into space, and then Gay's able to finish as Kalel where contest late. So like I just love seeing that. Like those two were able to find each other a couple times. And here's some of those examples of that pick and roll defense. I thought Kalel just kind of let Onyeka get behind him in general. So like Alec Burks calls this out.
Wiggs calls it out. I don't know what he's looking at.
Yeah, so that's what, man, they look, bro, they got it. I didn't
They need a
definitely
centralized.
oh yeah. They got the same kid out there. But like Kalel's just not aware here.
Mhm.
Oh wait, that was a fire punt. But they throw the lob over the top and then Onyeka's able to finish.
My punt for him when he gets lost on defense is where are you? Because sometimes it's bad. When he gets the blocks is good, but
Then here he is 1-on-1 against Onyeka. So I think the first thing to me, like as we talk about awareness here, so that first spin kind of catches Kalel off guard a little bit. So he kind of like tries to overcompensate and then hop, gather, spin over this shoulder, and then just
great touch.
Nice work and great touch from Onyeka here. I think this is good defense from Kalel too. Like I think again, like his issues are in space. Like in these scenarios, like I think he'll be pretty good with his length, and he also has this great verticality. So this is, you just got to give Onyeka props there. Here's like some of that screening chemistry I was talking about with Trae. So rescreening is so important when you play with a dynamic guard. I'm sure you see it all the time with Bam and Hero, with Bam and Duncan Robinson. When that initial action is iced, where they're able to force the shooter away from the basket, being able to pitch it back to the big and then get back into another action is so valuable. So here Trae is trying to shake Davion. He shakes him here, fakes a three, and then he's able to get back into the handoff with Onyeka. And Onyeka's gravity here is going to keep Kalel Ware from contesting this floater. And that's just, very simple basketball, but this is from Onyeka's comfortability with the ball in his hands and his screening and his chemistry. So I love this possession.
And that was a possession, which I don't know if you have it just a little bit earlier, but that possession, the previous 10 seconds, Mitchell was hounding Trae Young. So the screen was able to get space for Trae to finally, he didn't have a great shooting day yesterday, but to get himself an easy look. So like you said, angles.
That's one of the things like I really dislike about the NBA. It's so hard to like. Basically, what they do is because I'm in Atlanta, and so it's a blackout, and I can't look at Hawks games until 3 days after.
It's disgusting.
So like I can't clip full possessions. I hate it so much. But yeah, so now that we've gone through some of the clips, I wanted to ask you a question about guards being guarded by wings. Because, and again, you guys now have Davion, but there were plenty of minutes where Trae was matched up against Andrew Wiggins.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. But Wiggs was matched up against, I think he played, I'll pull up his matchups right now. It really just felt like, and this is like a nightly basis for Trae, and it's one of the reasons why I feel like guys don't really understand the difference in the type of coverages that someone like Trae sees when he doesn't have someone to take away that primary 6'8" defender that every team has at this point, right? So he played 30-ish minutes last night. The most possessions came against Davion Mitchell, but he also had 5 minutes of being guarded by Andrew Wiggins, and then about 2 to 3-ish minutes of being guarded by Bam Adebayo. And so some of that switching, but having to go against Wiggs and Davion Mitchell is not an easy task at his size, right? And he was able to get some wins there. And that's not the excuse of shooting performance either. Like some of the shots he should have hit, some of the shots he shouldn't have even took. But I think one thing that I think, first off, the efficiency relatively towards his matchups and then his shot profile, it's kind of a moot point. But I think the biggest thing is who can we project or add to give him someone to play off of that will command the respect of the best defender from the other team. Like, he honestly, it is unfair that he gets checked by Jaden McDaniels or Tumani Kamara or Herb Jones. But those are the guys he plays against because we've never had that wing creator that can pull that guy off, right? And I think right now, like, Jalen Johnson is probably the biggest bet right now. But I think
for sure
we almost, and it's kind of like the Hawks are building this defensive identity, like a lot of connectivity and secondary playmaking. And they try to make that splash with like, before building all that with the Johnson team. And they said, okay, this is someone who's going to take pressure off the Trae. And he did, but you didn't have everything else. You didn't have the defensive infrastructure. You didn't have the secondary playmaking. And you brought in someone who isn't conducive to that style of play in the first place, right? And I think that's why, like, I was really big on Brandon Ingram because I thought Brandon Ingram would come in, embrace that style of play, be that secondary playmaker. But now it's like, there's only so many guys who are available. Kevin Durant is getting old. There's only so many wings who can shot create. And so I'm leaning more so towards either the draft if things shake out a certain way or try to really lean into development for Jalen Johnson and Dustin. I'm not saying not do that regardless, but I feel like the Hero, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, like same thing with Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero is going from playing against the second, the third best defender to the first. And from your perspective, is Jaime and then Jovic, do you see them growing into that? And if not, long term, like who would you want or what type of player would you want to try and take that scoring, I guess, usage?
So that's a interesting question. I'll start off with the easiest answer. Do I think Jaime has that? No, I don't. I'll be very honest.
Y'all kept him out of the Dame trade though.
Oh, I don't think we did. He was in the offer, at least from what I was told personally.
I thought they were saying he was. Maybe that was
they didn't want him. They didn't want him.
What didn't want him? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, they didn't want him, but I don't think that was. Joe Cronin is that beloved by Heat fans. Anyway, but so just Jaime, I don't think he's the answer in general. He's somebody who lacks 3-level scoring ability. Just can't really shoot beyond the 3-point line. I think it's interesting you brought up Nico. That's been my bet since day one. I am a huge Nico fan. I love the fluidity at 6'10". He can get to the rim. He can facilitate. He can shoot beyond the 3-point line. Is he polished? No. He's also the second youngest guy on the team, and it's only like by 2 months over Kelal Ware. Like,
I did not know that. And he's been he's been in the league 3 years, right?
Yep. Been in the league 3 years. His development curve has been absolutely insane in terms of where he was year one, where he was halfway through year two, and where he finished year two. This season, it was a rocky start for him. I mean, he played almost exclusively with Terry Rozier on the floor. That alone takes your value. And as soon as he started coming off the bench and getting some more freedom, since January, he was posting 14, 5, and 5 splits almost in 30 minutes a game. Like he's getting into his own. Unfortunately, broke his hand. So we'll see how long it takes us. They said 6 weeks. I'm pretty sure he's out for the year. But still, like, I don't think, that you shouldn't push all your chips in on one guy. Like, even like you said with Jalen, like, and it's no shade to Jalen. Like, you hope he turns into that guy, but he can't be the only guy you want to turn into that guy. Like, you need to have somebody else there.
Exactly.
You can't put all your chips on one player. And like, I love Jalen Johnson. I adore. He's one of my top 3 most favorite players to watch in the league. Not from a star standpoint, just from I enjoy his play style. I enjoy what he brings to the team, and I think it's conducive to winning. With that being said, he can't shut you off from drafting somebody else that can also do some of the things, and then you figure it out later. Like, every team needs a wing. I think a wing is the most dominant position in the league. Unless you have yourself an absolute unicorn, I'm talking Nico, Jokic, that is, obviously. Unless you have yourself a Jokic, even SGA's wing size, like he's 6'6". I mean, in terms of, obviously he's a guard, he's a big guard. So like, it's tough to, most of the really, really elite teams have players who can, like you said, they have several players. So then the other guys look even better. Does that make sense to what I'm saying? Like, the biggest example is having guys who can fit their, like what Boston did last year. Like, let's just be honest. Like, Boston was unstoppable last year. What they did, obviously getting Tatum, then adding Brown, and then adding, obviously, Porzingis because he fit the mold and he added a different element. Like, all of these things is what helps you then blend your team and see what you want. I think you guys are figuring out the archetypes of players that you want, and now it's very clear, like, okay, this is what we're missing. This is what we need to target. How can we acquire this? I think Brandon Ingram would have been very interesting for you guys just because of the length thing. Like, I think when you have a guy as talented as Trae, but as limited in terms of his size, like, realistically, like, the way you build the roster around that guy gets a little tricky if you expect that guy to be your entire offensive engine. I don't think that's conducive to winning. So I do think you need to find a good piece next to him, alongside him, that can help aid him in some of these, like game like yesterday, where he had Wiggins on him. You should have somebody out there commanding Wiggins' attention.
Yeah.
You know, the Mitchell matchup he's going to get regardless, because that's the kind of guy he guards. But whatever, like some days are just, he's going to get those matchups. But those are the days you need to have somebody else that when they get that matchup, that can be your trigger point. And just as well as like running them more actions. Like, I think it's hilarious when you guys screen for him and it's Bam's guy. Like, why are you involving Bam in pick and roll with Trae Young? Get him, put him in a corner. If I was, I would sit Bam in a corner, and I would not give a damn what they do. I would live with whatever result if I was the offense. So it's just, it's an intentionality is a thing. So, we'll see who that guy is. You guys don't have your pick this year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right? It goes to the Spurs. You do have a pick, though, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, we have Sacramento's, which is top 12 protected, and then we have LA's, which is unprotected. The Lakers.
Okay. So maybe there's probably some guys in that range that you can target. But even then, it's not going to be completely just relying on that one guy that you drafted. It's going to be a team effort, and some of these things take patience. Now, how much patience can you have? How much patience can Trae have? Who knows? Like, that's the thing that neither you nor me nor anybody besides the front office and Trae Young know. Like, it's tough to gauge those situations. So, and that's also the beauty of fucking basketball, if I'm being honest.
I think Trae came into the season knowing that it would be pretty development focused, and I think at least I would believe that what we saw early in the season with their performance against some of the best teams in the league. They had most wins against the top 3 teams in the league. They had back-to-back wins over Cleveland at the time, who were on pace to have one of the best records in NBA history. And they're still dominant.
I think I had told you before the season, or maybe it was on Twitter, maybe it was like on the timeline. I'm a gambling man. The Hawks were plus 1,000 to win the division. I took them at plus 1,000 just because I believed in the outlook of the team. Unfortunately, Jalen Johnson got hurt, but still, like, you guys are like one game back. Like, let's be honest. Like, I think it was just too much. And to Trae's credit, he has really bought in defensively from the games that I've seen in terms of where he was 2-3 years ago, even when you guys were making playoff runs. So, like, now, he's handled his part as well as he could have. So I commend him for that, even if I did not like some of his, whatever. But hey, I guarantee you don't like players who suck unless they're on your team.
Yeah. So, and before I forget to make this point too, I'm also incredibly high on Jalen, but there's nothing that suggests, at least so far, that he can be that level creator that would basically say, okay, I'm going to take the defensive attention off of Trae with the ball in my hands. Like, he is incredible as a roleman. So last 2 seasons, he is, the season per 75 last season, 2024, he was in the 5th percentile for like finishing play. So that's cuts, transition, putbacks, roll man. And he was in the top 20 percentile, like effectiveness. This season, he was in the top 15 percentile, 85th percentile relative true shooting percentage on those plays. Where he has never really had some sort of effectiveness is as a creator. So like an isolation, handler, and post-up possessions, he was a minus 7.4 relative true shooting percentage. And so although he was scoring at an above or around league average efficiency overall, a lot of that was coming on easier looks with the transition stuff, where I think he's a top 5 transition player, or the roll man stuff playing off the Trae. So he has to get better there. I think he will. Again, this is a guy who didn't get a ton of run his first 2 years. The guy who basically, like, 2024 is really his first year, like with the shackles off, and he still had to play with DeJounte Murray. So it's like the shackles were truly off. You know what I mean? So I think his ceiling is still unreal. I think he will continue to get better. And the other great thing too is with some of the silver lining of him being out, is like we're seeing Dyson grow as an offensive player. He's been so much more aggressive. The 2 previous years in New Orleans, only about 70% of his baskets were assisted. This year, over the last 20 games or so, or last 15 games or so since Jalen's been out, he's at over 43 to 45% of his buckets being unassisted. So he's creating more for himself. He's getting to the rim about 5 to 6 times per game, shooting above 60% there. So there's ways for him to grow too at age 21. So I think between him, Breeza, Shea, and Jalen. Like, you hope one of those guys pops. But to your point, like, if someone like us, it could be draft related, it could be Zion, it could be Giannis, whatever it may be. Like, you have to throw those chips in the basket. I think that's when you really get into an uncomfortable conversation. Like, okay, who would be in that package? I don't want to put anyone's name out there, but I think if those types of opportunities present themselves with the infrastructure you built defensively and it doesn't compromise everything, I think the Hawks still have to be proactive about that. But I think the plan is still beyond making that move, because quite honestly, you may feel the same way. As long as Boston is the way Boston is built right now, no one can really compete in the East. And I know that sounds a little bit defeatist, but that is true.
I agree with you.
Yeah, like, there's really no point in trying to contend, at least in my opinion, in the next 2 weeks. We'll see how they look in the playoffs this year. They slipped a little bit. Jaylen Brown hasn't had a great year. But there's no team that I feel more confident in being dominant in the playoffs once more than Boston. And so for right now, this is their conference.
Yeah, and to like your point about, that move shouldn't be the only move. That's a very difficult thing for fans to accept. Every Heat fan wants Kevin Durant. They didn't care what it takes to get him.
Yeah.
That to me is an issue. I think teams falling behind on like how this new CBA works, the true value of draft picks, the value of building a cheap, having players who can outperform their contract. Not saying to like not pay them, but like you need to have guys who can consistently outproduce 100%. What you're paying them. 100%. Is the true way of building a contender. Like this isn't, say what you want. Like, I mean, if the Heat somehow get Kevin Durant, but it cost them all the young guys that they have, Kalel, Jovic, Jaime, which, by the way, it was what they wanted. Jaime, Jovic, Ware, Jimmy, and the first-round picks, all of them that we had available for trade. That does nothing for you as a franchise. Kevin Durant, whoever, Luka, you could name them. You're still not good enough. You need to field a complete roster. That's the way this league is won. That's what Boston did last year. That's why they went 16-3 in the playoffs. It's because you need to. It's not who has the best two guys. It's who has the best six, the best five, and how can they synergize on the court together. This is no longer Big Three era. We have three guys. We can sign a bunch of minimums and make that shit work.
No,
that it's typically that. That's not going to work no more, man. Like, and it's a true distant from like what the Heat front office and they believe, and it's really frustrating. I'm pretty sure like you probably had some frustrations with the Hawks front office during some years, but like it's frustrating for fans that think that that's also how that shit works, man. Like I'm sorry to tell you, if every team was to do that, there would be so many teams that look like the Suns do right now.
Yep.
That Kevin Durant is otherworldly. Devin Booker is arguably the best shooting guard, or for at moments for sure the best shooting guard, but arguably a top 3 shooting guard in the league. Bradley Beal, when he went there, we saw what he did, 30 points a game in a season. And it doesn't matter because who else is on that team? That's the issue. How do these guys fit together? That's an issue. Like, it's a lot of things to consider. And ultimately, those guys do get paid because they probably know some more shit than we do, but sometimes I doubt it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, so really great points. Everything I agree with. Continuity is king. It's always been in the NBA. Like, the Boston had that core together. Tatum and Brown they've been playoff tested for years. They tried multiple different cores, multiple types of iterations. They found a group of core guys where it was working when they were on the floor, and they kept tinkering until they got to that chip. They traded away fan favorites. Marcus Smart is beloved in Boston. They shipped him out. Grant Williams, some beloved by some, hated by some, they shipped him out too. Like, they never let emotion get into it. They never got rushed. They were very smart with the deals they made. They got Kristaps Porzingis for super ridiculously cheap. They somehow got Drew Holiday for super cheap.
They got Kristaps and a first-round pick.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I honestly think it's like the moves in the franchises that will do well are the ones who are maximizing the margins, okay? Mm-hmm. That's why I think Miami, while they finally have somewhat chosen a direction with moving off with Jimmy, you guys are better poised to exceed in this type of landscape than some other franchises. I think the Hawks are starting to enter that conversation because we have a great pipeline with the G League. We have guys like B. Krejci. We have guys like Dar Barlow, Mohamed Gay, very cheap contracts who are giving us playable NBA minutes. But you look like a team like Memphis. Memphis has maybe the best farm system in the NBA. If you look, I love this graphic. I can see Houston as well. The teams that are playing the best in the NBA right now have the highest proportion of guys that have only ever played. OKC has a ton of those guys. Denver has a ton of those guys. Memphis has a ton of those guys. When guys have a chance to build chemistry, build around a system, and commit to a style of play, in today's NBA, the overall power of that supporting cast just completely outweighs the star power. To what your point said. And I know I said earlier, we do need that type of guy. You still need those types of guys. Don't get me wrong. You can't just go out there and play all lives matter offense. Like, egalitarian offenses don't work in the playoffs. That is true. But
Correct.
the principles of egalitarian offense still apply in those settings. OKC is still going to look to Shea to create everything down the stretch, but those guys are going to be prepared to make those next reads, attacking those teams he creates, because that's the style of basketball they play all season. So you still need stars. Don't get me wrong. The Hawks still need to add another guy next to Trae, but it doesn't need to come at the cost of their young guys. It doesn't need to come at the cost of their whatever draft cap flexibility. But so I think that's a good place to wrap up, because hopefully we'll see you after the game tomorrow if you have any time, and I can save some other questions for you. We can maybe get into some draft players if you have any time. But I appreciate you so much, man, and let people know where they can find you. I know you're missing the podcast, so go ahead and plug that one more time.
Yeah, man. At Saucy Takes, no spaces with the Z at the end. If you see my camera, I mean, that should kind of look kind of crusty, but it is what it is, man. You know, whatever. But you can find me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And honestly, at Miami Heat Beat, follow us. Even if you're just there to have a good time, we don't take ourselves too serious, at least in post games. Why should we when the team looks like this? Am I right? Am I right? This team is booty. But, you know, you can come out, hang out. It's going to be a good time. We crack jokes. It's literally hilarious. So, you know, and everybody's welcome. Everybody is welcome. Not just Heat fans. It's just a nice way for us to decompress what we have to witness, at least for the remainder of the season.
Sure. Y'all make sure y'all tap in with him. I'll have it all linked in the description. I hope you all enjoyed. See you in the next one, and y'all be safe.